Some of you may know the yoga practice as simply some weird stretches that you maybe see on the internet, some crazy people standing on their head, or even putting their leg behind their head. I'm here today to tell you that yoga is so much more than that. The yoga practice is an ancient science of the mind that brings you the potential of healing, of peace, and ultimately of connecting with the deepest truth of human existence without sounding cliché, the ability to connect into the divine presence of unconditional love. So we think about the yoga practice first and foremost as a ritual, something that is as simple as brushing your teeth. How many of you brushed your teeth this morning? Can I get a yes? We all did. We're going to make our moms happy with that one, all right? So just like you brush your teeth every morning to get those little bits of plaque off your teeth, the yoga practice is a ritual that you perform in the body, in the mind, and in the spirit to remove old thoughts, old emotional hurts, and old wounds from the past so that your mind can be totally free, your heart can be totally open, and your spirit can rise up to its true potential. Without this daily ritual, all of the experience of life, all of the traumas, all of the pain that we experience in our life sits down around the heart and takes root in the body, and it weighs us down. But with the power of the yoga practice, you have the ability to create a new life, a new pattern of thought, and offer up the potential to make your world a more peaceful place. I came into this yoga practice 20 years ago looking to live a more peaceful life. I looked around and I realized that not only was I deeply unhappy in my mind, I had suffered from depression since the time I was 9 years old, but my body was in a state of desperation. I had suffered really damaging injuries in my ankles, and my body was just in a state of total disrepair. So I came to the practice searching for a more peaceful life. After 20 years of practice, the best way that I can define the yoga methodology is that yoga is a promise of peace, a promise of a better life, so that you can start today and clean away all of the wounds of the past, all of the mistakes of the past, and stand on the promise of peace so that you'll look back. If you start the practice today, you'll look back 20 years, 30 years down the road, and you'll see each day that every breath that you took in the journey of yoga slowly brought the arc of your life towards more peace and more happiness. I believe that the yoga practice has the potential to make the world a more peaceful place. It transformed my life, and I believe it can transform not only yours, but the whole world. I have a small, perhaps somewhat naive dream that if every single person, not just you and not just me, but every single person, all the business leaders of the world, all of the government leaders of the world, every president, every prime minister, every member of parliament or Congress across the world, if we each started our day with 5 to 10 minutes of meditation and yoga, I believe the world would be a peaceful place. Imagine the potential of healing, of transformation in your own life, where that every time you felt a moment of difficulty, a moment of struggle, instead of reacting, instead of operating from a place where you were based in the past, that you could stop, take a breath, open your heart, and tune into that place where you experience true and universal love for all beings. How many relationships in your life have been ruined because you didn't come from love when you were interacting in that moment? Imagine the potential that all of our personal wars and all of our national and international wars could end if all of our leaders as human beings could take the time to stop, reflect, and tune in every day and scrub their mind the same way we all scrub our teeth every morning. No human being is beyond the need to clean out the fabric of the mind. So when we look towards the future, what I see is yoga as a movement that spans nations, that is really a global nation in and of itself. Every yogi, every person who practices yoga redefines themselves in the values and the ethics of what it means to truly live the yogi life. Now, I'll tell you that that doesn't mean that when you meet a yogi, you're going to meet a saint. There are no saints left. I think they've all gone about 2,000 years ago. We should be so lucky if we ever meet one. If you meet a yogi, what you'll meet is someone, a person just like you, broken somewhere, wounded just like you, who has taken those wounds and those cracks and let the light shine through. And this is what the practice gives you, a promise of peace, a promise of happiness, a promise to transform your whole world. The beginning of the promise happens very simply. You have to make the decision that you're worth it to practice. By getting on your mat, by practicing even for 5 minutes a day, you make the decision where you say to yourself, I am finally worth it. I believe that I'm good enough to receive the blessing of the universe. I believe that I'm worthy of love. I believe that I can live in a peaceful world. You make that choice when you get on your mat and when you practice. You don't need to be any particular size, any particular shape. You don't need to be flexible. You're not too old to practice. You're not too young to practice. You don't have to be a particular gender. Men can practice, women can practice, transgender people can practice, everybody can practice. As my yoga teacher said, the only person who can't practice is the person who's not here in a body. Whatever body you have, this is the perfect venue for practice. When we look at yoga, I want you to think about this promise taking its shape in 3 forms, the essence of which you have to decide to show up and make your time to do this practice. You don't need 2 hours to practice, 5 minutes a day, and I'm going to show you what those 5 minutes can do for you right here today. The first aspect of the promise of yoga begins with the promise of peace. And how do you experience peace? Through the body. I spent so many years of my life feeling uncomfortable in my skin, where I would look at myself in the mirror and I would compare that image that I saw in the mirror to what seemed like perfect images in magazines. And I always felt like I was less than. My body was too small, my legs too thick, my face too weird, my hair not the right color, my eyes not the right shape, and I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And that feeling of not being good enough left me feeling like my body was foreign to myself. Then each time when I interacted with people, I always escaped. There are so many moments when we escape. The postures in the yoga practice invite you into presence with your body so that you can bring yourself into complete and total comfort in that space underneath your skin. You can literally begin to feel at home. You can look in the mirror and love the image that you see and really, really celebrate all of your beauty and all of your shadow and hold it in that big sphere of your heart. This is the promise of posture. You never need to put your leg behind your head in order to experience that. You might need to try. I won't make you do that today, but maybe if you come to class with me, we'll try one day. The second promise of the yoga practice is the promise of healing. The promise of healing happens through the window of what's called the breath. Take a moment right now and just tune into your breath. Automatically you're breathing. We're moving in, we're moving out. Inhalation and exhalation is happening automatically in every moment of your life. The breath is a window into the subconscious mind. If you're breathing in a short and shallow manner, it's often an indication of emotional distress, whether you're stressed or angry or depressed or feeling anxious or fearful. The breath is a window into your emotional state. When you're feeling happy and relaxed, we all know that feeling of a nice deep breath, which brings you into a state of presence. The third component of the promise of the yoga practice is the ability to calm and concentrate the mind. How many times throughout the day Does your mind go away from whatever object of attention, your point of attention? You want to be focusing on good thoughts. You want to be focusing on something positive, but the mind keeps harping on the past. It's almost as though, despite your best intentions, no matter what you're doing, you're meditating on the mess. You're thinking about how terrible life is, but you want to live a more peaceful life. With the yoga practice, you learn to train the mind so that no matter how many times your mind wanders away, you understand the discipline to bring it back into the task at hand. And this ability to concentrate the mind is the promise of the yoga practice to bring your mind into the only true place of presence, which is the reality of true and unconditional love. I'd like us to move into a few minutes, just a few minutes. I said I'd give you a 5-minute inspiration or hint at what the yoga practice really represents. So what I'd like you to do right now is, if most of yours are seated on the floor, which I'm really happy about, so if you're joining, I'd like you to take a comfortable seated position, and I'll do this with you right now. Bring your attention into your pelvic floor, which is the space between your sitting bones, and just hold your pelvis for a moment with your mind, which seems strange, but try. When you bring your attention to your pelvis, I'd like you to bring your mind up the spinal axis and sit up as straight as possible. This basic seated position, sometimes called Sukhasana, is the first posture that you'll begin your yoga practice with. The second tool that I'd like you to begin, that second promise, the breath, and close your lips and breathe as though you're saying sa as you inhale and ha as you exhale. And I'll breathe together with you, and it sounds like you're going to resonate the breath. Inhale. Keep inhaling and reach the top of the inhale and let it say ha on the exhale. Exhale. Squeeze your pelvic floor and let's do it again. Inhale. Find the bottom and the base of your pelvis, give it a little squeeze, and exhale. Remember, ha as you exhale. Reach the bottom of the exhale. Inhale. Find the top of your inhale. Squeeze the pelvic floor, and exhale. Concentrate on your breath, the long, deep, steady exhalation. Place your hands together, thumbs at the center of your sternum. Let your breath be deep and full, bringing the attention to the heart center. Feel the vibration of the heart, the heartbeat, the seat of the spirit within. Let the vibration of love with each inhalation come into the body, filling you up like a warm vibration of white light. The true light comes into your heart center. Using the breath as a root and the seed of the breath and the mind, deep in the channel of the heart, see your body totally healed. See your mind in a state of peace. And see your vibration in harmony with limitless, expansive, unconditional love. Through the vibration of the spiritual heart, expand your attention outwards so you grow your heart center. Let us all be here, all beings, everyone in this room, everyone together now. Let us all be united at the level of our hearts, at that same spark of the Spirit. Every breath welcoming peace, mental focus, healing, and love into your hearts. In the channel of the heart, with a simple prayer, may all beings, including myself, be free from suffering, free from harm. May all beings, including myself, experience deep and lasting peace. May all beings, including myself, experience forgiveness, deep and unconditional love. Let your mind rest here as in a seat of the sacred, as a temple of the spirit within. A nice deep inhale, and exhale the sound Om together. Gently open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me on this very short practice. I hope each of you leave with the seed to practice and make your world a better place. Namaste.
That was amazing. So folks, we need you to come and ask some questions to this wonderful person here. We're going to have about 10 minutes. Please sit down.
Okay. I have a general question to you.
Okay.
You've been talking about forgiveness, and I have this question that what advice would you give to everyone in the world? Because I've seen that the biggest struggle people face is forgiveness and forgiving themselves. So what advice would you give to yourself and to the people around the world about forgiveness and
I
self-forgiveness?
think forgiveness is a really important aspect of finding true and lasting peace. And I think the biggest path to forgiveness is, in my experience, to build a relationship with God, so that you understand that it's not all on your shoulders, and that, you know, the responsibility of the world doesn't rest on you. You're responsible for your own actions, but you play a part in a bigger picture. And I think forgiveness of the self, I struggle with it a lot. I'm really hard on myself, and I get to this point where sometimes I feel like I've made such a mess of everything and there's no way out. So I often find that through prayer, through meditation, then I can usually find the space to trust a power that's bigger and greater than I am to take care of my mess. And I feel like if I can trust God to take care of the mess, then I can forgive myself for having made it.
Next question.
Hi, Kino.
Hi.
I'm Yelena.
Hi, Yelena.
Thank you very much for coming here.
Yeah.
I've been in yoga for like 10 years now, and last 6 years in Ashtanga. And I was always thinking, following your videos and like
thank you.
watching what you're doing, how your day looks like, and actually where do you find the strength to practice every day? Because we know how strong it is. And you just get tired for a moment.
Yeah, my inspiration to practice every day comes from the recognition that when I practice, I'm a better person. So if I experience life without my daily yoga and meditation practice, then I have the motivation to practice just by how much of a mess I'm making without it, you know? So I think that's really the impetus. If you know that, you know, it's like the analogy I use about brushing your teeth. If you don't like brushing your teeth, you find it boring, one visit to the dentist with a cavity will inspire you to brush your teeth every day.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Adrian.
Hi.
How would you convince politicians to do yoga?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know how to convince them. I don't know. I've tried to send books to the White House in the United States, but...
How could we help you? I mean, the massive crowds, because a lot of people would join you.
This may sound a little funny, but I've taught one politician yoga, and the reason that this man came to class was because his wife was doing the practice. So maybe we can all just put it out into the universe. We can pray that somehow the right video, the right book falls into the right person's hands at the right time, and then they can begin to practice. I've heard that suffering is really the beginning of personal suffering, is when we're really starting to get interested in the yoga practice. So whether that's physical or mental, I wouldn't wish suffering on anyone, but perhaps the awareness that we're all suffering. Perhaps someone's child could introduce it to them. Perhaps the next generation of leaders is where we're looking towards. So if someone was raised doing their yoga practice, and it's maybe our children that are going to be those leaders who are practicing every day.
Next question.
Hey, my name is Sophie, and do you recommend any practice which would help with anxiety, or like some quick method that could help with stress?
Yeah. First of all, if you feel yourself anxious, the deep breathing that we did today, pause, go away from the situation, recognize your anxiety. You could even lock yourself in the bathroom for 5 minutes, squeeze the pelvic floor, 5, 10 deep breaths. Count the pace of your inhalation to 10. Count the pace of your exhalation to 10 on the way out.
Last question.
You mentioned that it's so important to be in the present moment and how to focus on being in the present moment in our everyday lives. So,
the last meditation that we did to keep a root in the heart center, this is the place where I truly believe human interaction should best take place from. So when we're speaking to people and you find yourself in your mind, or you find yourself thinking about, what they said then, or what they're going to say in the future, or your mind starts to go away, notice that, and then bring your attention back to your heart. So you constantly set your attention. You're speaking to a family member. If you find yourself thinking, they're annoying, why didn't they say this, why didn't they say that, something like that, go back to your heart and tune into the place where you love them and let your interactions come from there. We will fail. I fail at that all the time, just like we fail keeping the mind present in meditation. But it's not about being perfect. It's about every time you've gone away, just to get that strength to come back a little bit stronger.
Kino, thank you so much for an incredible session. Let's give Kino a big round of applause, please. That was awesome.
Super. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.